the United Nations is exploiting hysteria over the Zika virus to wage war on babies, stepping up its efforts to legalize abortion across pro-life Latin American nations where the killing of unborn children mostly remains a serious crime. While stoking fears over the virus, the UN is even claiming that what it disingenuously refers to as human rights and international law demand that pre-born babies in Latin America lose their right to life. Pro-life advocates, religious leaders, and governments across the region, though, are fighting back hard. The UN has long been pushing for abortion to be legalized and made safe worldwide. Its most recent effort came this year, when the global body, often ridiculed as the Dictators Club, unveiled its Every Woman, Every Child campaign in which it calls for safe abortions under the guise of saving lives, though apparently unborn babies' lives are of no concern. Before that, under the pretext of sustainable development, the UN Entity for Gender Equality and the Empowerment of Women, or UN Women for short, also called for global abortion on demand, along with more sterilization programs and population control schemes, and more government interference in family life. In short, the UN has a history of seizing on virtually any justification, no matter how absurd, to push its radical pro-abortion agenda. The UN is so dedicated to abortion that, according to multiple experts testifying before Congress, the UN Population Fund, a UN outfit charged with reducing the number of humans on the planet, has even been helping communist Chinese authorities perpetrate forced abortions as part of the one child, now two children, policy. So it is, perhaps, no surprise that the UN would first fuel fear-mongering over the Zika virus, and then exploit those fears to campaign against laws protecting unborn children from abortionists. While the alleged link between the Zika virus and birth defects has not been confirmed, and some dispute that there is a link, the abortion industry and the pro-abortion UN have seized on growing public fears to make their case, even though the known symptoms of the virus are extremely mild. UN officials and abortion promoters, as usual, are trying to vaguely conceal their intentions by referring to sexual and reproductive health services, admitted code words for abortion, rather than slaughter of unborn children. Top UN officials are also trying to deceptively frame stripping unborn babies of their right to life as an issue of supposed women's rights or even human rights, as if babies were not humans merely because they have not yet emerged from their mothers' wombs. Laws and policies that restrict women's access to these services, contraception and abortion, must be urgently reviewed in line with human rights obligations in order to ensure the right to health for all in practice, demanded UN human rights boss Zaid Rad Al Hussein of Jordan, where preborn lives are also protected by law. Clearly, managing the spread of Zika is a major challenge to the governments in Latin America. However, the advice of some governments to women to delay getting pregnant, ignores the reality that many women and girls simply cannot exercise control over whether or when or under what circumstances they become pregnant. In other words, killing the unborn should not be a crime because then women can control when they are pregnant. In Zika-affected countries that have restrictive laws governing women's reproductive rights, the situation facing women and girls is particularly stark on a number of levels, continued Hussein, who has been embroiled in scandal for months after his office was caught trying to silence and persecute a whistleblower who exposed so-called peacekeeping troops raping children. In situations where sexual violence is rampant, and sexual and reproductive health services, abortion, are criminalized, or simply unavailable, efforts to halt this crisis will not be enhanced by placing the focus on advising women and girls not to become pregnant. Many of the key issues revolve around men's failure to uphold the rights of women and girls, and a range of strong measures need to be taken to tackle these underlying problems. Despite the supposed urgency of legalizing abortion to supposedly deal with the Zika virus, the UN itself admits that the alleged link between the virus and birth defects remains unconfirmed. A causative link between Zika and microcephaly, babies born with abnormally small heads, and Zika and Guillain-Barré syndrome, a neurological condition, is still under investigation, reads the same press release in which the UN human rights chief is pushing legal abortion. The World Health Organization, meanwhile, which recently declared the Zika virus an international public health emergency, described the disease as usually mild, with symptoms lasting only a few days. There have been no reported deaths related to the virus. But the UN human rights boss, who presides over a global human rights bureaucracy that is dominated by ruthless tyrants of various varieties, was adamant. Upholding human rights is essential to an effective public health response, and this requires that governments ensure women, men and adolescents have access to comprehensive and affordable quality sexual and reproductive health services and information, without discrimination, he claimed, adding that sexual and reproductive health services specifically include abortion-inducing emergency contraception, as well as safe abortion services. He also claimed that abortions should be delivered in a way that respects a woman's dignity and privacy. Pro-life advocates, though, were not amused with the UN assault on babies' lives under the guise of battling a virus. The forces of death and misery of the pro-abortion industry are at it again, noted Mali Garcia with the pro-life life site news.com, pointing to the campaign aimed at loosening abortion restrictions in Latin America. Never mind the facts. Any and all excuses are valid in the minds of the pro-abortion activists to push for their desired end, free and unencumbered abortion rights. A petition against the UN's antics hosted on the same site suggests the world has gone mad. In a sane world, it's the virus that should be targeted for destruction, not a person infected by it, reads the document, which had already been signed by around 1,000 people late Monday. But in our insane world of today, that's exactly what United Nations, UN, and other groups are doing, going after the victim, instead of the disease. Religious leaders across the region echoed those concerns, blasting the push to advance abortion by exploiting the virus. We should never talk about therapeutic abortion, said Catholic Cardinal Oscar Rodriguez Maradiaga of Honduras last week. Therapeutic abortion doesn't exist. Therapeutic means curing, and abortion cures nothing. It takes innocent lives. Brazilian bishops also lambasted the agenda, saying in a statement that the Zika virus is no justification whatsoever to promote abortion. They also called for targeting the virus rather than its victims. And they noted that despite claims made in a recent court case in Brazil in a total lack of respect for the gift of life, it is not morally acceptable to promote abortion in cases of microcephaly. Even if it were proven that Zika virus is linked to microcephaly, and so far a link has not been confirmed, pro-life advocates say that hardly justifies killing unborn children. Either way, critics noted, the UN has no business demanding that pro-life governments legalize abortion or anything else. Americans concerned about the use of their tax dollars to promote abortion in Latin America and beyond do have options. At the top of the list is a bill currently sitting in the House Foreign Affairs Committee, which heard testimony about the UN using US funds for forced abortions. That would end US government membership in the UN while evicting the controversial institution from American soil. That would be a good